So yes, this is what very pregnant looks like. Thank you, Adam. So there's a story that I really love that belongs to my mom, but I'm going to share it secondhand with you tonight. And it's also a story that I love to share every day or every year on my birthday because it is the story of my birth. And I was thinking about this yesterday, why I like this story so much, and I think it tells a lot about where I'm from and who I'm from, and it really means a lot to me. So, and it's timely, right? So as I'm eagerly anticipating my own birth story with my son, it's kind of fun to think back and imagine what that experience was like for my mom so many years ago. But I was born in November, and so it was Thanksgiving season. I was expected due on Thanksgiving Day, and it's also hunting season. So for my family, that meant that the men in the family would be out in the woods hunting if they weren't working, essentially. And so there was this elaborate plan for my mom to be able to reach my dad out in the woods if it came time for her to go to the hospital. She was supposed to call her sister-in-law, who through this chain of 6 other people was somehow going to find my dad out in the woods hunting deer while she was ready to go to the hospital. An unbreakable chain, if you will, of the series of people. But it turns out I had pretty perfect timing. So I was, like I said, due on Thanksgiving Day. My mom had cooked the whole family Thanksgiving meal because even though she was as pregnant as I am, she was very mobile, as she said, and capable of preparing a full Thanksgiving meal for the family. Her mom and dad had come from Port Washington for Thanksgiving and decided, I'm not going to wait for a baby to come around, so they left. And that night it was, like I said, hunting season, and so the deer hunting party was in our basement with deer hanging from the rafters and cutting up deer and wrapping meat. That was my mom's job, was taking the cuts of deer meat and standing on a cold cement floor for hours upon hours, wrapping these cuts of meat for the freezer so we'd have things to eat for the upcoming year. And the following morning, she felt her stomach feeling a little uncomfortable. And she thought surely it was because she had eaten too much at Thanksgiving and then had spent a long time standing on a cold concrete floor with her big belly hanging out, so she didn't really think much of it. But then it became clear that it was time to go to the hospital. And my timing was perfect because it was Friday morning. My dad was down in the barn finishing up the morning chores. He hadn't gone off hunting yet, so she knew exactly where to find him. And she called down to the barn and said, it's time to go to the hospital. And he said, all right, well, I'll be up in a little bit after these milkers come off the cows. And like my brother said, well, you can't just leave them there. So it's kind of the quintessential hunting, farming family situation. And I was the third of 3 kids, so my mom knew what to expect and what she was doing, and so did my dad. But they were on their way to the hospital, and my mom described it as being able to breathe very easily. I was a very easy labor and delivery. She got to the hospital, and my dad, she said, just drop me off at the door. If you want to go to Hardee's and get yourself some breakfast, that's totally fine. I'm doing great. She was not at all concerned about this whole process because, like I said, she was experienced and things were going very well. And so they were checking in, and in the place where you do the contractions before you get to the delivery room, the nurse said, well, who's your doctor? And my mom said, Dr. Peterson. And the nurse said, I'm sorry, but Dr. Peterson is out for the weekend for Thanksgiving vacation. Dr. So-and-so will be filling in for him. And my mom said, no. I was told that Dr. Peterson would come in no matter what day I went into labor. He told me to just let you know that he would be here. And the nurse said no, and my mom said yes. And the nurse said no, and my mom said yes. And the nurse left the room, and my mom was about to follow her. She was a big fan of Dr. Peterson, who had delivered the previous siblings, and the nurse came back and said, Dr. Peterson will be right in. We were able to get a hold of him, and he said that, yes, he'll be here. And I think that just says a lot about my mom. So Dr. Peterson comes in. And again, my mom was breathing very easily. She, with the previous 2 kids, had a hard time with all the different stages of Lamaze and reaching the final stage before she even got to the hospital. But with me, it was easy. And so the doctor asked my dad if he wanted to come down by the doctor and witness the birth. And my mom said, yeah, that's fine. I'm doing fine up here. You go if you want. And My mom had just had her eyes closed and was breathing deeply and was very calm and heard the nurses say, like, "Are you doing okay?" My mom's like, "Yeah, I'm still doing great. We're just having a baby." And she's like, "No, not you. I'm talking to him." My dad, who had birthed many calves throughout the history of his life as a farmer, was white as a sheet and not doing okay. And so the nursing staff took him out into the hallway with a cool washcloth for him to get some air and took care of him and his needs while my mom was continuing to prepare to have this baby. And he came back in the room. My mom said the baby came very easily, and the nurses gave me an APGAR score of 10. I don't know if you're familiar with the APGAR score, but on a scale of 0 to 10, it measures like how the baby's looking in terms of color and breathing and pulse and all of these things. And so I was pretty proud of my perfect score from literally day one. And Dr. Peterson said, "Congratulations, you have a beautiful baby girl." And my mom said, "Well, babies all kind of look the same and are pretty ugly, aren't they? Like, let's be real." I was like, "That's my mom." And he said, "No, I've seen lots of babies in my life, and you truly do have a beautiful baby girl. Congratulations." Thanks for listening.